we were 2-0 up, and I was like, in the final, and I was like, we can do this. And both Fliss and I, and we had Sean Marples in the corner, and I was like, we can do this. He's like, yeah, I know you can do this. I was like, yeah, but I've just had an epiphany that we can do this. You're 2-0 up in the final. I was like, I know, but I've just thought about it. And like, you know, we can do this now.
It's like crept up on you.
It's like crept up. I was like, oh my God, we can do this now. I was like, oh my God.
Hello and welcome back to Serving Up Trouble. This is the podcast about everything women's table tennis, and I'm your host, Chloe Island. My week in table tennis this week, it's been a really good week in table tennis. I participated in the Hollingbury One Star and I got a silver medal. Woo! These are rare shiny things that get added to my cupboards every now and then, and this was a really, really nice tournament run by the lovely Matt Porter and Sally Hughes, a really great team up in Worthing. And considering that when I entered, Matt sent me an email saying, just so you know, you are the only woman that's entered, and you know, it might be mixed. There were actually 10 of us in the end. 10, which is kind of unheard of. So we had a full-on women's category. We played a big round robin. I had been practicing for a change, and I actually played really well. I think I still struggled with some of the pimpled players, the short pimps especially. I actually think I played quite well against the long pimps players, but the short pimps still catch me out every now and then. It's just the way that they're able to kind of hit through spin, especially if it's kind of weak spin. You know, they're able to attack it. So I think a little bit more practice required on that, but I'm getting there, and having a silver medal to show that some progress is being made has really kind of put me in a good mood table tennis wise this week. So thank you to everyone at the Hollingbury One Star. I had a great time. My guest this week is a true rising star in the para table tennis world, and more importantly, my Halton teammate, Grace Williams. After making her international debut at the Dutch Open in 2019, Grace has proven she's a force to be reckoned with on the table, competing for Team Wales at the 2022 Commonwealth Games, winning a silver medal at the 2023 European Championships in women's Class 8 singles, and in 2022 winning a gold with doubles partner Fliss Pickard at the World Championships in Class 14 doubles. Grace also has a degree in nutrition, and I can't wait to talk to her about her career so far, her aspirations, and getting an insight into the para pathway. So without further ado, here's my chat with Grace Williams. Hello, Grace.
Hi, Chloe.
So this is really strange because I've not seen you in a hot minute, and you've been so busy.
I know, it's been a proper start to the season, so it's been really busy.
Jet
so it's been good.
And
Jet
like that.
everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. Where was the last competition that you
We
played
went to
in?
Poland, and we've only been back like maybe a week or so. So we've not been too bad. Spain, I mean, March is always really busy anyway because it's the start of the season. Everyone gets going and everyone goes, but hopefully now we're into the season now, so it's not too bad.
Going back to the very beginning, I think I remember seeing somewhere that sport wasn't initially something on your radar
Absolutely
as a kid.
not.
Like you weren't a
Absolutely not.
sporty child. So
No.
How did table tennis come about, and what kind of attracted you about it?
Well, I mean, as I said, like in year 7, 8 and 9, you know, when you have to do sports, you have to do PE. I hated it. Like to the point where I tried to get like my PE teachers to be like, Grace, you don't have to do it today. I'd be like, oh, please, miss, I don't want to do it. No, and then, so we did like the generic sports like netball, hockey, because we didn't really mix with the lads, the boys either. Mm-hmm. So it was very difficult for me to like actually do sports and to be one, because I was probably the only child who was disabled back at school, because obviously I'm from a small town in Wales. Mm-hmm. But then I obviously had community physio, so one day she said, oh, well, there's this sports day you can try out near where you live, so if you want to go down, take your mum and dad and see different sports. And I was like, absolutely not, no way. And my mum and my dad were like, no, just try it, you might find something random that you might like. And I was like, all right, fine. So I ended up going, and I remember sitting in the corner crying my eyes out because A, didn't want to be there because I don't like sports, and B, because I didn't feel like I was disabled enough. So considering that I have cerebral palsy and I know I do, it's a very mild case, a very mild form. So seeing loads of people in wheelchairs and with worse than me, with CP worse than me, it was very difficult. Not because obviously I understood they were disabled, I understood I'm disabled, but I've never seen a variety of disabilities before. So I was like, I don't belong here right now. Crying in the corner to my mum saying, can we go home, can we go home? And I remember someone coming over to me and just saying, oh, come on, just have a go at table tennis for a bit and see if you like it. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I mean, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I can go home and I can do what I want.
Yeah.
And I remember just having a game with somebody, and I remember him turning to my mum and saying, she's actually really good. And I was like, is she? I don't know. Like, we're not a table tennis family. You know, my sister and my mum and my dad are very sporty, but we wouldn't say we're like a table tennis. We've never heard, like, we played at home and on holiday, but nothing like massive. And she was like, is she that good? I don't know. Like, she just messes around. And then it snowballed from there, and a guy got in contact with my dad and basically asked if I wanted to go to the bigger version of it down in Cardiff. And that's where I met Jim Monkley and Tom Matthews on the bigger scale, because they were down there, and it kind of just snowballed from there.
Right.
It kind of just went, okay, well, you know, go to this club in Wrexham, and then that's where Sean Marples came down and visited me. And then again, it just snowballed from there to going to Sheffield, then going to competitions and being classified and all this kind of stuff. And it literally just snowballed, and it was a massive... It went from absolutely nothing to absolutely something in the space of like a week. Like,
how old were you when you went to that first kind of community day? I
think I was probably like 12, 13.
Right.
And then I didn't start coming to Sheffield till I was probably 16, 17. So in between 12 and 16, I was in Wrexham once a week. I then played with my dad in Wrexham, and then we bought a table and we played there. So it wasn't like it was I'm training 3 times a week and I'm like absolutely amazing. It was just messing around. And then once Sean came down to Wrexham at that point, then it was kind of like, okay, no, she's actually like, she can actually do something here, like, oh, we'll help and stuff. And that's how Sheffield came about, and that's how the pathway, like me going into pathway and me going into that and me doing this now.
Yeah. Wow. So it's quite a short amount of time, really, to go from starting. Because, I mean, in terms of, like, you know, when the pathway starts for a lot of young players, it's very young.
Yes.
So you were a little bit older, really, when your table tennis journey started, and to now be playing, you know, with like, the GB squad.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me.
It's
like,
a complete life change.
It is complete life change. And I remember, obviously, because both my parents are shift workers and both my parents work full time, it was such... They were willing to do it. They were willing to take me to wherever I needed to be. But it's not till I, like, actually realised how much sacrifice they actually made for me growing up. Like, they made so much sacrifice to do that. And it was like, oh, my God, like, it's not until you actually come out of that zone and you're like, no, they just do it because they're my parents. No, they do it because they love me, and they do it because they want to do it.
Yeah.
And it was that point where I was like, obviously moving to uni, it was kind of like, oh, they don't have to do it anymore. And they were like, I don't know what to do with all this spare time now that you're not at home. I was like, oh, thanks.
Oh, it's great that you had that support.
Definitely.
You know, so early, that parental support, like, it's so important.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a little bit? So you've got cerebral palsy. Yeah. How does that affect your, you know, day-to-day life? Really?
It actually doesn't affect me at all day-to-day. It really isn't. It doesn't affect me. I relatively just get on with it. Sometimes there's something where I'm like, oh, my hand, like, oh, it takes me longer to do something because of how fatigued I am, or just how fiddly it is with not having a hand that works or a foot that works or whatever. But it doesn't actually affect me day to day, and it doesn't affect me doing daily activities. So I just kind of just... It's a very mild case, it's a very mild form, so I'm really grateful that it is that, because I can still do what I want to do. And regardless of what disability you have, you can do anything. But for me, because I have a mild form, it doesn't really affect me at all.
Yeah. Was it when you first started, was there ever like a bit of an experimentation period with how you were going to serve, or what kind of player you were going to be? Was there a bit of like a time where you didn't, you had to figure that out?
There were times where we went to, when I was like up at Sheffield training, and obviously trying to figure out how to serve, because normally you have to serve out the other hand, and obviously I can't do that. So it was like, well, can you bounce the ball on your hand? I was like, I can try, and it didn't work. So I was like, well, this is just not going to happen, is it? I'm not going to have any points at this rate.
Yeah.
So then it came to, okay, well, how do I serve with one hand? And now trying to obviously learning different serves, a lot of people try the way that I serve and people can't do it, and I'm like, well, it's just not like, it just comes naturally to me because I've constantly just used this left hand. It's not like I've used both hands for a certain amount of time and then I've gone back and just had to use this one. It's always just been this left hand, so I've not really tried to use it that much.
Just use what comes naturally to you
basically.
in the moment. And you'll talk about your playing style for a little bit, because like you said, that's developed quite quickly in the grand scheme of things, you know, how you play. And so can you describe what your playing style is and what kind of game do you like? Like what?
I like a clean slap to slap kind of game. And I feel like it's much more prominent in a Class 8 game than it would be like Fliss's class, for example, in Class 6. You know, because of Class 6s, they can't move that well. They have pimples, they have long, they have short, they have medium, just to try and work the point, because their movement is their weakness. Whereas I think for Class 8, yes, part of movement is a weakness because we are whatever your disability is, you very mildly case. But I like smooth, slap, moving the ball around close to the table, trying to just get control, and it's that way. And I feel like playing like Class 6s and Class 7s do help as well, because you do get some of that awkward players. Like I do have some players in Class 8 that have long pimples, that have short, that no one has medium, but it is very, very fast-paced game, especially in Class 8. So that's probably where I'm going to try and develop my game further going into the season, is to just kind of just control it, stay up and be small and compact rather than having to play awkward players.
Yeah. So just for people that don't know about the para world and things like that, and you're talking about classes there, can you explain, you know, the class that you're in and what that means? So
the classes are 1 to 11. So class 1 to 10 is physical disabilities and 11 is an intellectual. So 1 to 5 is wheelchairs. So 1's the most severe, and then 5 is like you've got a core, you've got a trunk. And again with the 6 to 10, 6 is you stand, 6 to 10 is standing, but 6 is like very disabled, or you know, one limb, or what, like Martin Perry for example, he's got one limb, he's in 6.
Yeah.
Fliss, who's got a worse case of cerebral palsy, is in 6. And then you got 7, 8, 9, 10 that vary between whatever disability you have is where and how mild it is where you are. So my class, I'm like bam smack in the middle. So I'm not so disabled that I can't move that very well or whatever, but I'm also not a 10 where I'm like, oh, she can do 3 forehands from every corner. Yeah. So that's how it kind of works. But for my class especially, it's more like one side is impaired more than the other.
Right, okay. And then, so how often is it that classes are mixed when you go to competitions?
It depends how many people enter. I think for the women, there's a lot more chances of getting your classes mixed than it would be for the men, because it's such a male-dominated sport. I've just come from Poland, and we had a 7 to 8 there because there was 3 7s and I think there was 5 8s.
Right.
So it was a combined classes, and there's been a fair few times where, you know, you enter a tournament, and because the players list doesn't come out till a certain time before your tournament, you don't know who's going. But then there could be like 2 9s, there could be 3 8s, and you're like, that's looking like it'll be combined.
Yeah.
It is more common in the women's, but I wouldn't say it's like it depends what tournament it is during the year. Like for example, Slovenia, for example, there would be no way that would be combined, because it's such a good tournament. That's a very strong tournament. Whereas like say Finland, for example, that's literally just happened this week. It was again 7 to 8 because it was not many. So there was probably like 5.
Yeah.
So combined.
You kind of touched something on that, but there, you know, aren't as many women.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, there's not as many women.
In general, there's not many.
And then when we get into para classes,
there's generally not. There's
very little.
We actually for some reason yesterday we were going through the ranking list for different classes. And in my class, it's probably something like 29 to 30. And like the class 8 men's, for example, there's probably like, I'm not on top of my head, I don't know how many, but I reckon there's probably like 85.
Wow.
Like between. And so that's such a big difference.
Massive.
And it's like, for me, for example, I'm like top 10, but Billy Shilton and Aaron McGibbon is in top 10, and with worlds apart, but with the same class and with the same top 10, but it's so different. There's so many of them. There's not many of women, so it's easier for us to climb up the ranking list, but it's harder to stay up there. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I'm curious that like when you're training, I mean, it's hard to train for playing other people in your class because you're not going to come across as many of them very often. So is there something that you do to kind of prepare for playing people in your own class, or is it just people who are around the class, or do you play with the men sometimes? Like, how does that work when you're like training for a para event?
So when we're training, we obviously have the hall in the English Institute of Sport where there's a few of us that train full time, and for me, I'd probably train a lot with Fliss Pickard. She would be my teammate. She would be my trainer partner. I also train with Theo Bishop, Ryan Henry, Shay Thacker, Max Flint. There's a few of us that are there that we train together. I don't tend to train with the guys because it just doesn't. Our styles just don't mix, and I'm not that good. Between us, I'm not that good. So like,
are good. That's not.
I'm good, but I'm not like their level good. So so there's kind of like they train with each other, we train with each other. But because there's no 8s and because there's not many females, we have to train with the guys. There's no way around it. There's no way like sometimes like, you know, if another country invites us somewhere, we'll go and we'll spend time with them. But relatively it's just us in the hall and we just train together, and sometimes it's specific. So like, for example, if I'm training and we have an individual exercise, I'll do something that I want to do for my game in 8 and then Fliss will do something for her game in 6. So we do have that variation sometimes of classes, but it doesn't really happen that often because we haven't got the chance to do that. And that's no one's fault. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. It's just the way it happens.
You need to encourage more women in.
We do. Out of a squad of 18, there's 4 of us. So it's very male dominated. And it's just the way it is.
How do you kind of operate in that space? I mean, I know that like, you know, a lot of the guys are very encouraging and it's a nice environment and things like that, but I think, you know, we've all had that experience of going to a competition and being the only woman, or going to, you know, training and being the only woman, and I'm kind of curious as to like, is that something that you clock mentally, or are you quite good at just going with the flow, whatever's on the table?
I don't even pay attention to it. I don't pay attention. You know, like I'll know if Fliss isn't in, or I'll know if some of the others isn't in. But I wouldn't say I sit there and go, I'm the only girl today. Like, where is everybody? It wouldn't be a sort of gender thing. It would be where is everybody rather than where is the girls or where are the lads. And I think that's just the way, because of how the squad is, that you're just, you know, some days you are the only girl, but there's nothing you can do about it. Like you can't go, I'm not training something. You're gonna just have to get on with it. And it has been tough sometimes when there isn't that female capacity in that hall, and you're a bit like, I kind of want that female companionship in training, but again, there's nothing you can do about it.
You just get on with it at the end of it.
So
talk a bit about some of your, you know, biggest tournaments that you've been part with. I want to just start with the Commonwealths, playing for Team Wales. So obviously Team Wales is like, you know, that is where you're at. That is, you know, you were just playing in the nationals and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about playing for Team Wales, what that was like, and, you know, the Birmingham Commonwealth experience in general? How was that for you?
That was absolutely amazing. That was probably the one tournament that I would, hand on heart, say I'm the most proud of. Not because of my result or whatever, it's because I got to represent my country. And we can't do that. We represent Great Britain when we go abroad, which is still a great privilege. Obviously, but to represent my nation, to represent me being Welsh, it's just a little bit special. It's just something special. Like, and then like growing up in a small town in Wales, you know, speaking the language, you have that little sense of like pride when you put that top on. And I remember going to the kitting out, and I remember thinking, oh my God, like, I'm Welsh. I can say I'm Welsh rather than be like, oh, I'm British. I have to do that. But like, I was like, oh my God, I'm Welsh. Like, I feel so honoured to do that. And then it was lovely that it was in Birmingham because it wasn't at home games because it was in England, but it felt like a home games. Like my mum and my dad, my grandparents, my family, my auntie, my uncle, my cousins, they all came and supported me. And it was one of those things that I was like, this is absolutely amazing because it was my first major event. It's my first major where I had other sports alongside table tennis, but it was also my first major. I hadn't been to a Europeans or a Worlds before that. So it was my first sense of, oh my God, this is a massive tournament. And like, you had to go, you couldn't go anywhere without an accreditation. You had to wear your kit all the time. I was like, this is mental. But it was the most amazing experience. I didn't really know a lot of the Welsh squad beforehand either, because obviously I didn't go to Cardiff a lot, and actually I didn't know them that well. And then we had a training camp prior to Commonwealth, so about 2 weeks before. And I just remember thinking, these people are lovely. Like, why was I so nervous? Because they're lovely. And I remember, like, after 5 weeks, I was like, I'm never, like, that's it. Now it's just over. Because it's 2 weeks and then it's over. It just goes so quick. Like, there's no, like, you're in the moment, you think about the moment, and then you're like, oh, it's over now. What am I going to do? What am I going to do?
You've got that forever, though.
Yeah, I've got that forever.
You've played in that. I mean, it's so sad that the table tennis isn't part of the Commonwealth Games, now, but, it's such a... no one can take that away from you.
No one can take it away from me.
In a Commonwealth Games as Team Wales.
I know.
Like, that's amazing. Yeah.
And then my sister went travelling. My mum and my dad actually went out to visit her. And they took my Team Wales suitcase on the plane. And everyone was like, oh my God, like... who like represented Team Wales at Commonwealth? And my dad's like, my daughter did.
Oh,
I'm like, yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Oh, great. Famous.
I know. Australia.
That's so
worldwide
cool.
known.
So cool. And then, I mean, that year you also had the doubles with Fliss, plus 14.
Yeah.
And you got gold.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Literally,
and I remember seeing the article, because it was a BBC article.
Yes.
That had both of you on. And so obviously I've known Fliss for, a long time. She comes from my neck of the woods, northwest of England. But then, I've known you for a while as well. And just being like, seeing you in a BBC article, being like, hang on a minute.
My grandparents rang me and they were like, oh my God, you're on BBC. I was like, I know. Mental.
But I mean, what was that like? Because obviously this is still quite new for you at this point, coming at these big tournaments.
Worlds was my first major para event.
Gosh.
And I was a wild card.
Yeah.
So I wasn't meant to effectively I wasn't meant to win anything. I was going there for the experience.
Yeah.
And it was just absolutely surreal. The whole experience was just surreal.
Yeah.
I genuinely was like, I don't want to go. Like, I was like, I just want to stay home. I'm not ready for this. This isn't me right now.
Was that the nerves?
Yeah, it was just, I was so anxious about going because I wasn't really going with anyone that I kind of knew. Like, I was only one on pathway that was going. And I just thought, I'm not ready for this. I'm going to leave it here. You guys do what you normally do. You get medals, and I'll just stay at home and support you guys from the sidelines. And I remember getting on the plane, and I was like, just take it all in. Just take it all in. You're not going to win anything. There's no expectation to win anything anyway. So just go have fun and learn something. The only thing you can do is learn. And the doubles was first. So the singles normally are first, and then the doubles. But for Worlds, I did it differently. And I remember playing mixed doubles with Josh, and I came off that match, and I was like, we've just lost 3-0. I was like, okay, now I'm on with Fliss. And it was a very, very quick turnaround. And I remember after, one of the media guys came up to me after Josh's match. I was like, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to shoot because I've got a match right now. And he goes, yeah, that's fine. I'll meet you afterwards. And I was like, okay. And then I remember, going on with Fliss, she was like, look, just have fun. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm just going to have fun.
Yeah. And
we won it 3-2. And I was just like, okay, well, we've got a good, the two classics is. So I was like, we'll have fun. And we won it 3-2 at the end. And I was just, because I think we were 8-all in the fifth. And I was like, you could do this. There's no chat. There's no, you can do this. We know, me and Fliss, we've got this. And we ended up winning 11-8 in the fifth, I think. It's a bit longer time ago. But I remember thinking to myself, like, what does that mean? Like, we've just won a quarter final. And I remember going back to the room because I was sharing with Fliss. And she goes, you know what this means, right? And I was like, no. She goes, we're getting a medal. And I was like, wait, what? What? And she goes, yeah, we've won the quarter final, so we're going through. And I was like, okay, this is mental, but all right, well, you know what? I've got a medal. I feel happy. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And then, to be fair, our semi-final and our final was easier than our quarter-final.
Really?
We won it. We won both our semi-final and final 3-0.
Right.
And because we were playing against France, and to be honest, I really can't remember much of it because I don't remember the matches in itself. I remember the actual experience, but I don't remember the matches. And I remember thinking afterwards, I was like, I'm through to the final. This is absolutely crazy. Like, what is going on? Like what? And so we won it, and then the final was the next morning. So I was like, okay, I'll have a, you know, no matter what happens, I've got a medal. I'm not that bothered. Like, I'm here for the experience. I'm here for the learning. Like, there's no expectation. Just go and have fun. And we were 2-0 up, and I was like, in the final, and I was like, we can do this. And both Fliss and we had Sean Marples in the corner, and I was like, we can do this. He's like, yeah, I know you can do this. I was like, yeah, but I've just had an epiphany that we can do this. You're 2-0 up in the final. I was like, I know, but I've just thought about it. And like, you know, we can do this now.
It's like crept up on you.
It's like crept up. I was like, oh my God, we can do this now. I was like, oh my God. And then, and I remember it. We were 10-8 up. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking, just one more, and we got this. We just won it, and we won gold. And then Germany. We were playing Germany, and they won it. They won the 2 points succeeding, so it was 10-10. I was like, okay.
It's always a nerve-wracking point.
10-10. I mean, but in my head, I was like, if they win this set, it doesn't matter. We're still 2-1. It's still 2-1. We've still got a good chance. Whatever happens, it doesn't matter. And I remember hitting the ball. We'd won the points. It was 11-10, and I remember hitting the ball to the opposite side of the table, and we won it. And I remember seeing Fliss just on the floor, and I was like, "What's just happened?" Like, I could hear like the squad at the back like shouting, like absolutely like shouting the rooftops off. I remember Sean jumping up for joy, and I remember just seeing Fliss's crutch and herself on the floor, and I was like, "What is going on here? I'm so scared." But that was such an unreal experience, and I will never ever forget it, and I will always be very grateful for everybody who was in that tournament, because everybody helped me, either if it was something small or if it was something massive. They all had a part to play in that, for me, especially for me personally, and it was such an unreal experience, and I will never ever forget it.
And mentally, you know, to go from where you were at the beginning of that tournament to keep it going,
that was crazy. Yeah. It was over like 3 days as well, because it was like the first day was like the quarterfinal, then the second day was semis, and then the final. I was just like, because I never had an experience like that before. It was all like tournaments where you had like three matches in a day or 4 matches in a day. It was really quick, whereas Worlds was more relaxed because there was a lot more matches on and they were more important, if you're gonna get that.
Yeah.
So it was a bit like, okay, you've got more time to think about it. I was like, I don't want to think about it. I want to just get it out of the way. And I remember thinking to myself, it's all right, like it's fine, like it'll be different, but you'll just kind of just have to just deal with it. And then we went in, and I was just like, what is going on now? Like, I even rang my mum and dad afterwards, obviously because it was in Spain. I rang them, and my mum was at work. She couldn't watch it. She was too nervous to watch it for live. And my dad was off, and he was like, I had to turn it off. He was like, it's too stressed for me. I was like, I'm too stressed. I had to just take the dog for a walk. And then afterwards, they were like, oh, we can watch it now because we know what happens, so it's a little bit less stressful. I was like, so if you're stressed, how do you think I felt?
That's so funny. I know. Just had to come back to it later.
Yes, literally, they were like, we had to watch it afterwards because we knew what happened because we were too stressed. I was like, I was in that match. Yeah. How do you think I felt?
God.
I was very stressed.
Wow, well, that's an incredible achievement.
Oh, yeah.
A really incredible achievement. And I know it's tricky now because now you've got that expectation.
Yeah.
and you're kind of going into more international tournaments. So I'm going to like just ask you a little bit about, obviously you were trying to qualify for Paris.
Yeah.
What is that experience like, and how do you kind of keep going through those tournaments? Because it's a slog, and you've got to play a lot of table tennis.
Yeah. Well, because considering Paris was obviously 2024, and then that was the year that I was graduating university.
Ooh.
Very, 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 very stressful time.
Yeah.
And everybody in the squad would literally tell you that I think every day I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Because it was so stressful. Because I was trying to finish my dissertation, I was trying to finish our presentation, my assignments, trying to qualify for Paris was just like...
Just casually trying to qualify for Paris.
Yeah, and then everyone was like, how are you doing it? And I was like, I'll be honest, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the amount of... This is the first kind of cycle that I've done, and this Paris was kind of the first Paralympics where I was like, okay, this is how it normally goes. This is how it's going to happen, because it was my first. I didn't do Tokyo, so I didn't have that experience.
Yeah.
So this was all new, and I remember in January last year, they were like, okay, well you're gonna go to like Brazil, you're gonna go to Kazakhstan, you're gonna go to Spain, you're gonna go to Poland. I was like, whoa. I was like, hold your horses. I'm like, third year uni. He's like, I know that. We're trying to qualify. I was like, I know that. And that's fine. I can go to all these tournaments, but I've also got to, like, you also had to know them in advance so I can let uni know. And also sort my life out away from the table, because, believe me, a third year degree is already stressful as it is. And then adding on the fact that I was going to loads of tournaments, I was like, this is very stressful.
Yeah.
So I had, like, a plan. I, like, fixed it with the coaches, fixed it with the staff members. Everyone knew where I was and what I was doing. And so that helped me a little bit, because I was like, okay, I know where I am. I know what I need to do. Before I go, I was like, okay, I need to focus on training because I'm going to a tournament, so I need to do less uni work. But because I'm doing less uni work, after I come back, I need to do more uni work, so it's less time training. So it's all trying to plan the outside of the competition before the actual competition itself. And obviously, I didn't qualify. You know what? At the end of the day, it is what it is. I had a little cry. I was like, you know what? I'm still graduating, so
yeah,
it's still a big year for me anyway, regardless if you go to Paralympics or not.
Yeah.
So I was bothered, but I also was like, I had something else to focus on at the time. So I was like, okay, it is what it is. LA next one. So I was like, get that out of my head. And I just remember thinking to myself, next year or next cycle, you won't have any of this. You'll just have to focus on playing and competing. And I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. My shoulders a little bit like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just felt like 2024 was such I want to say a bad year, because it was a great year, but it also was very stressful.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
I think people realise, I mean, you know, you are still so young.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and when you're kind of going through these, like, life stages, as well as trying to qualify for these huge tournaments.
Yes.
Yeah. It's massive. I mean, and you also have to make that decision about whether or not you're going to try.
Oh yeah, there was so many conversations with coaches, with lecturers. They were like, "Well, we can give you a study leave if you want." And I was like, "No."
Yeah, you wanted that degree.
I wanted that degree, but I also wanted to just do it because coming away from uni work, so doing it for 2.5 years and then having a break and then coming back to it would have just been very stressful.
Yeah,
would have just been, because you would have had that momentum, you would have had that time, and then you would have focused on something else and then go back to it. It would have just messed. I think it would have just messed with my head. So I said to them, I was like, you know what? No. And even I said to my coaches, I was like, I'm not. I'm doing this for me. This is my decision. Personally, this is what I feel like is best for me. And I don't know whether anyone agreed with it. And I don't know whether people were like, she's crazy. I probably am.
A little bit crazy.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I look back and I'm thinking, yeah, you are. But I didn't regret it.
No.
And that, to me, was the most important thing. So if I regretted it, I made the wrong choice. But because I didn't, I was like, I made the right choice for myself. And everybody who knew what I was like, she will work hard. She will work hard. She won't just slack off training for uni. She won't slack off uni for training. She will work hard, regardless of what she's doing, the two things that she's doing simultaneously, she'll work hard for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
What would you say kind of, you know, either during that time or elsewhere is like one of the biggest challenges that you as a player have had to kind of overcome? And can you talk a little bit about how you kind of got through it?
I'll be honest, my support system were absolutely amazing. My mum, my dad, my sister, my grandparents, they were absolutely amazing. The amount of times I was like crying on the phone to my mum going, I don't think I can do this. She was like, well, you just need to take a break. I was like, I don't want to break because I want to just do this. And she was like, and there were a fair few times I was crying on the phone. I was literally thinking about giving up because I was like, oh, I can't do this. I'll just take a break. And it was so mentally challenging because it wasn't like I had time to, I didn't have downtime.
Yeah.
Because like now I'm not at uni. I'm like, oh, I can go home this weekend, or I can see my friends this weekend, or I can just chill. No, I was in the library Saturday, Sunday. Because in the week I didn't have time to, you know, after a lecture, if my course mates wanted to go to the library, I was like, oh no, I got to shoot to training, or I got to shoot to gym. Mm-hmm. So in the week, I was so busy between lectures, training and gym that my weekend was for uni work and my assignments. So I didn't have any downtime. I didn't have time to just go breathe.
And that's a big sacrifice.
That's a massive sacrifice.
Especially when you're at uni and you want to be socialising and you want to be like, it's a big part of becoming independent and things like that. And you have to, you sacrifice that for the training and for the graft and for the work. So it's I don't think people realise.
There were so many times where my friends were like, oh, do you want to come out? And I was like, I can't. Like, I am going to training, or I've got a competition coming up, so I need to train. Or there were times where I missed training for like assignments because that equally was just as difficult. Like, sometimes if I had a deadline before a competition, I would have been like, look, I can't. I've got to do this. Especially with group presentations. It was so challenging for me to get across that I can't just slack off something because you want to go out, or you want to have a lie-in, or you want to go home for a nap. You don't understand. Like, you need to be there because I haven't got the time to figure out your schedule. You've kind of got to figure out mine. And I was so grateful that my course was a small cohort as well, because we all got to know each other. We all got to know one another. So it wasn't like it was like strangers. I'm asking strangers to just meet at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're like, that's really early. It was my friends that I was asking, and because it was them, they were like, yeah, that's fine, no problem. And if you can't do it, like, here at other times. So they were very accommodating to me, and I also was very accommodating to them if they couldn't do it for some other reason. But that was the most challenging bit, was trying to find time to do other things around my training, around uni. And I did feel like I didn't have a actual social life. Well, my social life is...
What's one of those?
What is one of those? After I finished uni, my mum was like, you've got time now. I'm like, yeah, but what do I like to do? Like, I've got so much time, but you don't think about how much time you do have to do things when you're so busy doing other stuff. Like, my weekends were literally, I was spent in the library, or I was going to see my friend, not to talk to them, to do uni work. Oh, we did have a little chit chat, but it was more uni work than social time. And I do feel like, looking back, I do wish I had more of a social life during uni. But also, I don't, because I did get 2 incredible major medals and I got a 2-1. So I sacrificed a lot, but I also got so much stuff out of it that I'm not that bothered anymore.
And I mean, the decision to kind of go on the pathway and to, be part of Team GB and Team Wales and things like that, that's not like a light decision to make in general. So have you got any advice for, like, if there was a young player who was kind of at that stage in their life, trying to make the decision whether this is something that they want to pursue or something that they just want to keep as a hobby? Have you got any advice as to, how you figured that out?
Do you know what? I would tell them to see themselves in 10 years or 5 years, because they're also quite young. If you can see yourself training full time, if you can see yourself competing in competitions, then I would say go for it. But if you can't, then I wouldn't say go for it. Because for me especially, I'm a very big advocate of a work-life balance. I'm not that person that loves table tennis all the time, goes to loads of competitions every single weekend. I'm not that person. I put my hand up. I am not that person. But I'm also that advocate of, you've got to also work hard, but you've got to have a bit of downtime as well. And I especially figured that out after Worlds, actually, because we flew back, and the day afterwards, I ended up going back to uni, and no one batted an eyelid at why I wasn't there for a week. And I was like, I've just won gold. I've just won gold at a World Championship tournament, and no one's even asking me, oh, how did it go? No one cared. And I was like, So no matter the result, no matter what happened, I was still the same girl. Yeah. So if you can see yourself doing it, I would say go for it. But if you can't, then not waste your time, but don't do it, because you might find something else down the road that you want to do more. Yeah. And that is much more important to me to say to them, because I don't want them to look back in 5 years' time and go, I wish I went to uni, or I wish I did this, or looking at someone else's life and going, I wish I had their life.
Yeah. I think you should have taken a little kazoo around with you or something to like announce it's like gold medalist.
Yeah, I was
entering the building.
It honestly was so crazy to me that no one cared. Yeah. But at that point, it kind of really dug into me. I was like, no matter the result. So no matter if I lost a final, no matter if I won a final, no matter whatever it was, no matter the result, whether it was a small tournament or a major tournament, I'm still the same person. I'm still a daughter. I'm still a sister. I'm still a niece. I'm still a granddaughter. I'm still the same person. So it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you're still gonna have to go to work. You're still gonna have to go to uni. You're still gonna have to do your assignments. Yeah. It doesn't change. It doesn't change anything.
I mean, saying that, there was actually some numbers released recently that kind of said that the Paralympics, the broadcasting numbers, table tennis was the third most viewed of all of the sports for the Paralympics. It was actually like a really good number.
That's great.
So it's, I think we're getting there. But I mean, I'd like to know your opinion on like the coverage of para now, because I think it is coming up, but I think, it's crazy to me that in England and in the UK, in GB, some of our top-ranked, world-ranked players are our para players. And I don't think we recognise that to the extent that maybe we should. Like, some of our world medaling players are still not given their flowers, I think.
Yeah, I do think that there is a massive difference between table tennis and para table tennis, and not just the fact that one is a para sport. It's so different. It's not the same sport. It is, but it isn't. There's so much variety around like the wheelchair game and the standing game that the able-bodied side probably wouldn't ever know about. And especially now that the Paralympics are being covered a lot more. It's been, disability is coming out with a lot more people. There's a lot more advocates to it. There's a lot more TV. It's a lot more televised. It's a lot more medialized, and there's a lot of stuff around it. And for me, that's absolutely. I didn't have anything of that growing up. I was from a small town in mid Wales. I was the only girl that was disabled. I didn't really have anyone. I was like, oh my god, like you're like me. I didn't have that, and I feel like now this is so much more. I want to say normalised, but it is normalised. Yeah. And it's so nice to see that. And it's so nice to see that some of there's so many para table tennis stars I can name off the top of my head that haven't really been recognised a lot, but also have done so much amazing work for the sport. Yeah. Both nationally, both internationally, that I don't think anyone would know. And to me, that's really sad. But also, we are getting to that point that it will be there, and in a couple of years, give it a couple of years, and we will be there. But it's just we need disabilities become so normalised that it's just second nature.
Talked about all the time. Yeah. And long may it continue. It is nice to see it kind of. I think Channel 4 having the rights to the Paralympics. I was watching it more than the actual Olympics just because it was quite accessible. Yes. To watch, so I think public broadcast Paralympics.
Yes, that was probably the changing point to it, that it was so normalised, and like you see loads of people out there that are disabled, but actually they can play a sport. So we're not just people who sit on our sofas and watch TV all day long, or we don't go to work because we can't. We actually. We're normalised day-to-day life. We can go to work, we can play sport, we can do whatever we want, but it's not normalised to see that. So when you see Paralympics on Channel 4, you see people that have one limb or four limbs or walk differently or whatever it is. You see that and you're like, oh yeah, they can do whatever everybody want to do. Yeah. It's just not seen enough. But now that they've got it, we'll see a lot more of it.
Yeah, which is absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk a little bit about your degree. This is a bit of like a subversion from the table tennis side of it, because you did a nutrition degree.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit, I mean, I'm not sure if this is something you're able to talk on, but I know that there's, at the moment, I see a lot of TikToks, Instagrams and things like that about like trends around eating and food and things like that. And some of it makes me a bit uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. Some of the representation of like how we're fueling our bodies or what is trendy to be eating and things like that. So I was just wondering a little bit if you could talk about, you know, something that you learned about keeping healthy or a mindset to have when you're being shown all of these things on social media that might be, you know, a little bit, I find it quite strange, but I see it everywhere. It's become more of a thing, this like super dieting and things like that. Yeah.
Honestly, the one thing I will say is you need to have a balanced diet. So a lot of the trends or a lot of the diets are like you eat a certain amount of greens a week or you eat this amount a week, and then you've got to do it over a period of time. You can't just quit cold turkey and go, all right, I'm going to cut out chocolate or I'm going to cut out carbs. No one physically can do that. It's just not how our body works. Our body fuels ourselves. It doesn't work like that. So when I see someone go, you need to cut out this, you need to cut out that, I'm like, no. You need to do it over. You need to have a well-balanced, maintained diet, because then when you want to not eat a certain food or you want to cut out a certain food, you can gradually do that rather than just quitting it cold turkey. Because when you quit things cold turkey, you crave them a lot more. So when you quit it and you're thinking, oh, I've had like 4 days where I've not eaten chocolate, I'll just have a few bites, you'll eat a lot more than you think you will because you crave it, because you've not had it for 4 days and you've quit cold turkey. So gradually doing stuff over a certain amount of time works, because it's not like you're sitting there going, okay, I can't have any chocolate, but I really crave chocolate, so I'm going to have some fruit. If you want chocolate, you eat chocolate, but just know you can't have a full bar, or know that you can't have a certain amount. You just have a little bit, because when you have that craving, you are satisfying that craving, but you're also knowing that, okay, well, I'm not going to have the full one, because in 4 days' time, you might have the full one if you quit cold turkey.
Yeah. How important is it for, like, especially like young girls that are playing sport and things like that, to make sure that they're fueling their bodies in the right way? It's
so important. And I think as well, because obviously in the English Institute sport, while I was at uni, the GB boxing are next door. So I did a stint with the GB nutritionist for boxing while I was doing work experience for uni. And I remember going into meetings with them and they were like, oh yeah, I need to lose weight, I need to do this. And obviously of boxing, you have to do that. But it was the way that the nutrition was like, okay, do it this way, rather than them going, okay, I need to lose weight, and he's like, yeah, you need to. It was more their choice to do that, because they need to obviously weight maintained. The other side to that would, for me especially, like when you look at young girls now, when you look at the social media around dieting and looking a certain way, it's very, very, very negative. It's very, very harsh for me to see, because I'm like, no women look like that. And I think there's a lot of misinformation around dieting and around gym and around so many weight changes on social media that it's very dangerous for young girls at the moment. And it's so hard and it's so horrible to watch, because I'm thinking to myself, if that was me like 10 years ago or even 7 years ago, I would have just been like, oh my God, I need to look a certain way. Right. I need to feel a certain way. You don't need to do that. You need to just be yourself. Yeah. But you also need to understand that social media is a very toxic place. Yeah. And you've got to understand that first before you work on yourself, because you've got to understand that if I'm seeing a video of someone saying that you need to get rid of that fat and lower your stomach, you need to know that's incorrect, but you also need to know that that's wrong. Yeah. But a lot of girls don't know that that's wrong, so then they'll follow that, and you're like, no, honey, that is to protect your organs.
It's mad. I mean, I fall into that cycle of thinking sometimes, especially when it's just everywhere and you get bombarded with it. And the more you engage with it, even if you're engaging with it in a negative way, the algorithm's designed.
You're still, no matter if you didn't positively or negatively, you're still interacting with it, and that's such a hard thing to do, hard thing to break, especially when algorithms and social media now. Because if you watch one video, you'll have 10 more of that same video
absolutely.
or that same sort of topic, and it's so difficult. And I do feel like at the moment, like even like young girls and like the way that you have certain topics discussing on social media or even outside, it's so hard. It's so hard being a girl. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be, but actually it's so great being a girl as well. But it's also so hard because you see, social media topics, the weight changes, periods. There are so many things out there that young girls struggle with, but it's not normalised, so they don't talk about it, or they see negative comments and they think of those negative comments.
Yeah, I think it's almost the commercial, like some of these topics are being talked about, but it's almost in a commercialised sense. Like sometimes the only time that I really see periods discussed is when there's a product.
Yes.
When there's a product, or there's
when you need something, or period underwear, or like tampons.
Exactly.
They're like, oh, it's discussed, but I'm like, but you're discussing it because you kind of advertising something for women to use rather than the actual like. But it was I saw an article I think it was last year, that period blood was only used on products to test it in 2023. Yeah. I was like, excuse me, so what have I been putting in my body? Technically used to. It's so strange to me that like women are not being used for certain topics or certain researchers, and a lot of it is they're using men, but I'm like, men and women are biologically and genetically different. So especially like in the game, like we're bringing it back to table tennis, it is such a big thing that men and women are very different in table tennis and the different sports. Yes, they're going to spin more. Yes, they're going to power to you more. It's so different. And I do feel like a lot of them are like, sometimes I do get bogged down because there's not many women, you are playing men, but because they spin better or they're so much more powerful, it's not because I'm bad, it's just because they're biologically and genetically different to me. So I'm not used to that because I don't play them. Yeah. But it's hard for me to do that because of how it works.
Yeah, I wrestle with this in my head a lot because you're right, and there is that gap at the top. That men perform differently. I wouldn't necessarily say better because they're different games.
Yes.
But they do perform differently. The games are different.
Yeah.
But then, when you're playing at my level, I play more men than I play women just because of the gap. And there are men that are way stronger than me or can hit much harder than me that I will still beat because how hard you can hit the ball isn't necessarily, how good you are at table tennis. There's so much more to the game than that.
It's just those specific, some of
those
shots.
Things. So
it's just some of those things. It's just the way that the cookie crumbles and the way it falls, because it's not saying like, I beat men, you beat men. While I'm playing, sometimes I'll hit a powerful shot past me because I'm not ready for it, or it's too strong for me to take. It's not because I'm bad. It's just that one it's just too big of a shot for me that I'm used to, because I don't, because normally sometimes I'm not used to that in international games, so I don't play men internationally. Yeah. It's so different, and I'm like, whoa, I'm not used to that. That's fine. Yeah. It's because you don't normally play that. It's a different game. It's a different ballpark.
Yeah. I get that it can be frustrating as well, but this is why it's so hard sometimes having these conversations, because there are like two sides to it, because there is part of my brain that's like, I really don't want to say that. There's part of me that doesn't want, because it seems like you're validating something that I often don't believe, because there's always exceptions. There's always people that are like big and strong. A general rule doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but what you're saying is correct. Yeah. And there has to be a way of dealing with that mentally as well when you are like playing against a man.
Especially if young girls are coming up and they're playing a lot more men than
which often you are.
Which often you are. You are, because there's not a lot of options.
I think it's easy to get discouraged when you're often playing like male players and you feel like you're losing a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad player. No. It's a different style.
And I do think probably that's one of the reasons why there's no women, because they do get disheartened. That young girls coming through, you see them and they're playing men, and it's like, that's just not fair, because they're trying their hardest, and you're just smacking the ball past them. And it's hard because you're watching them and you're thinking, I was in that position once, but there's nothing I can do to help them, because they're just going to have to get through this bit to get to the stage where they can play women. And it's so hard, because I sit there and I'm like, oh, I'd love to just hug them and just be like, it'll all be all right, but you can't. Like,
positivity, you have to be positive.
You've just, and I see so many of them get disheartened, and I'm like, it's only this short amount of time, stick with it. But some of them don't, and then that's where the female numbers fall, because they don't stick to it, and it's really hard. It's really hard then when you get to our level, when you want to play women, but there's not many, so you have to settle for men. So no matter the age you are, you're having to settle to play men. But when it's young girls and you're like, if there's many more coming through, we'd be able to have like women's tournaments, or we'd be able to have a women's only open, or whatever it is. We'd be able to do that, but you've got to get through playing men and having that disheartening talk with yourself and going,
saying that, I just want to counter this with a very positive story that happened to me recently. So I was playing at a London 2-star, and it was open because there wasn't as many women, but at London Academy they have the young girls coming through, and some of them are like national champions, like these 12-year-olds and things like that. And I saw the men in my group, some of them were skipping, some of them like stretching, like giving it everything. And then you've got this 12-year-old that just like walks on the table, absolutely wipes the floor with them. And I was like,
yes.
That was really satisfying.
Yeah, it's genuinely.
It was nice. I mean, even when they weren't winning, but they were competing.
Yes.
And I could see, maybe it's a generational thing, because these girls were really not perturbed. But I think they'd been told, like, it doesn't matter. No. You're here to get experience. You're here to do your best.
Yeah.
And you could see that in their mindset. They were absolutely fantastic. They went full with me, easy. But just the way they went on the table. I mean, this is at a 2-star, 1-star level. But I just want to kind of say it as an example of something that, there are girls coming through that are playing really strongly against men. And it's fantastic to see. But I think the big difference is that was a big group of them, and they were all supporting each other, and they were all clapping for each other. And I think that makes the difference, because if
you have support behind you at a tournament, if you don't have that support at a tournament, you do tend to get very in your shell, because you don't have anyone to help you out of that shell.
And
so when you're losing, you're like, oh, what am I supposed to lose now? Because I've got nothing to do, because no one's supporting me, and I'm just on my own now. But when you do, I do feel like when you have a big group and everyone's behind you, you do well, because you're thinking, I've actually got support here. I want to do well for them, but I also want to do well for me. It's so nice to hear that, because it's like, okay, we're coming out of that men and women vice whatever circle, whatever it is. And it's so nice to hear that, but it's also like, if she was on her own, it would have been. And
I think that is the big difference. I'm glad that those girls.
But they've got each other.
Yeah, and I hope that they all stay playing together, because that'll be just really great. If they can all like stay playing like into the nationals, in seniors and stuff like that, that'd be amazing.
Amazing.
We're gonna have to wrap up a little bit, so I'm gonna ask you, what's next? Working towards LA, dreams of LA.
Yes. And
also just, if you could do anything, if money was no object and you could do anything to try and support more women playing, either in the para pathway or just in general, what would you do? What kind of thing would you, if it was just one thing that you could put in place to kind of help people? So LA first.
Yeah. So obviously LA is the big goal. Yeah. LA is the top dog. That's what I want. That's what I'm aiming for. But obviously I've got to get through 3 seasons before that. Yeah. So small baby steps so far. This year will be Europeans. So every year, it's good because every year we do have a major games. Obviously now with a new system, it's not a major, but to me, a Europeans is a big thing. So I am looking forward for the rest of the season. Yeah. And I'm going to just try my best and just kind of get into it, obviously, because last season I took time off. So now that I'm back, I'm going to be like, okay, just gradually get into it, work your way through, and just prepare my game for when it needs to happen for like 2026 season, 2027 season. That's the one I'm aiming for. So this year is just about me just trying to get my game to work for me personally and to try and get as much development as I can through playing matches. That's the goal every year. But the main goal will be LA, and then Europeans this year, Worlds next year, Europeans following year, and then LA.
Busy lady.
Busy lady. Very busy lady.
And then what you would do? How would you, if you could do anything?
What would I do? Money's no object.
Yeah.
I would... It's hard because you try and think of things you do. The one thing I probably would do was I would go to a lot more... I'd go to a lot more clubs around the UK, and I would try and find girls. Mm-hmm. I'd also go into schools.
Yeah.
Table tennis isn't a widely known school sport, especially not at my school. So it was very... If you do it a lot at schools, then you might get a lot more girls in, because they might be like, okay, no, I'm good at this, and what you'll have that little like click in your brain. You'll go, oh, I quite like this. So I would go into schools and I would go into clubs and I would try and find many girls as possible, and then I would probably host girl and women's tournaments. I'd host girls days, so that you come and you just have just as many girls as possible. Have a table tennis club open for the day and just go, right, girls, let's just go and just play and just meet each other, so that you do have that support system in place for when you go to tournaments or for when you go to opens or whatever, because that is, again, the main thing. I find that if girls are supporting girls, you have a much more high rate of playing further in your career. So that's probably what I'd do.
Amazing. Thank you so much
No
for joining me. I've really enjoyed this. It's been great. I had such a great time talking with Grace, so we're a little bit short for time at the end here, but I'm still going to quickly go through my champion of the week this week. And the champion of the week is Brazilian player Bruna Alexandra. Bruna is a 2-time Class 10 World Para bronze medalist and a Paralympic bronze medalist in the singles and team event. Her right arm was amputated due to thrombosis, and she's only the second table tennis athlete ever to compete in both the Olympics and Paralympics in Paris 2024. In an interview with Olympics.com about playing in the able-bodied event, she said, "I have to flip the switch. I try to adapt my game, slow it down a little, and play different angles. I'm used to it now." Which I love how, like, easy that is. It's like, oh, I'm used to it now. It's like, so cool. So cool. She's a really interesting and inspiring player, and I'll link her socials in the description below. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It really helps to get the word out there. And tune in next week for another episode of Serving Up Trouble. Bye!